Wellness Rhythm Show. Find your rhythm. Live your wellness.
Y'all, let me ask you something. When everything goes sideways at once, the job stress, the family stuff, the thing you didn't see coming, what's your actual first move? Not the thing you tell people, the real one.
Right, because for most people, the honest answer is something like eat biscuits over the sink at midnight and hope for the best.
Ha! Which, for the record, I have absolutely done. But here's the thing, though. There's a gap between what we know we should do when life gets hard and what actually builds genuine resilience. And that gap is what we're digging into today.
And it's worth saying up front, resilience has become one of those words that gets thrown around so casually it's started to lose meaning. Today we want to give it back some teeth. What does the science actually say works?
So let's start with the definition problem. Because when most people hear resilience, they imagine this unshakable person who just bounces back. No wobble, no mess.
And that framing is frankly counterproductive. The American Psychological Association defines resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity. Note the word process, not a fixed trait you either have or don't.
That distinction matters so much. Because if it's a process, it means it's something you can practice. You're not born resilient or not resilient.
Exactly. And researchers like Ann Maston at the University of Minnesota have done decades of work showing that resilience isn't extraordinary. She actually calls it ordinary magic. It comes from ordinary human systems, relationships, meaning-making, basic self-regulation.
Okay, ordinary magic. I love that phrase, and I almost never say that about academic language.
High praise indeed.
So let's get into what actually works, because there's a lot of noise out there. Think positive, be grateful. And I'm not dismissing those things, but they're not the whole picture.
Right, let's unpack that. The research points to a few core mechanisms. One of the most robust findings comes from work by Susan Cabasa in the early 1980s. She identified what she called psychological hardiness. 3 components: commitment, control, and challenge.
Break those down for us.
Commitment is staying engaged rather than withdrawing, even when things are hard. Control is focusing on what you can influence rather than what you can't. And challenge is reframing difficulty as something to learn from rather than a threat to survive.
Here's the thing, though. That third one, challenge, that's where I personally struggle the most. Because in the moment, a crisis does not feel like a learning opportunity. It feels like a crisis.
And that's a fair and important point. The reframe doesn't happen in real time. What the research suggests is that you build that capacity before the crisis through lower stakes practice.
So it's like training for something. You don't run a marathon the day you decide to get fit.
Precisely, and this brings us to one of the most well-supported practical tools, cognitive reappraisal. This is the work of researchers like James Gross at Stanford. It's about actively changing how you interpret a situation, not suppressing emotion, but genuinely shifting your perspective.
And that's different from toxic positivity, which I think a lot of us conflate with resilience building.
Critically different. Suppressing or denying negative emotion is actually associated with worse outcomes in longitudinal studies. Gross's research is very clear. The goal is not to feel less, it's to interpret differently.
Y'all, if you found the show valuable, this would be a great moment to hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps us reach more people who need this kind of conversation. Okay, back to the good stuff.
So let's talk about the social dimension, because I think it's underweighted in most resilience conversations.
Oh, hugely underweighted.
Julianne Holt-Lundstad at Brigham Young University has published extensively on social connection and health outcomes. Her work found that adequate social connection is associated with a 50% greater likelihood of survival across the lifespan. 50%.
That is a staggering number, and it tracks for mental resilience too, not just physical health.
Consistently, yes. Social support buffers the stress response. It literally affects cortisol levels. When you have people around you who you trust, your nervous system regulates differently.
But here's where I want to bring in some real-life friction, because I think the call-a-friend advice can land as hollow. If you're in the sandwich generation, caring for aging parents and raising kids, your social connections are often the first thing that gets cut when time runs short.
That's a legitimate challenge, and I don't want to minimize it. But the research also shows that it doesn't require large social networks. Even 1 or 2 high-quality relationships, what researchers call strong ties, can provide significant buffering.
Quality over quantity, which feels more achievable.
And it connects to something else worth naming: meaning. Viktor Frankl's work, developed from his experiences in Nazi concentration camps and formalized in logotherapy, found that people who had a strong sense of meaning and purpose showed significantly greater psychological endurance under extreme conditions.
That's about as high-stakes a research context as you can get.
Indeed, and more recent work by Michael Steger at Colorado State University has quantified this. People who report higher sense of meaning show lower stress reactivity and faster recovery from setbacks.
So this isn't just philosophical. Meaning is a resilience mechanism.
It functions as one, yes, and meaning doesn't have to be grand. It can be as concrete as knowing your work matters to your team, or that your presence matters to your kids.
Okay, I want to touch on something that gets almost no airtime in resilience conversations. Rest. Not sleep hygiene as a separate topic, but actual rest as a resilience strategy. Because I think we've all been sold this idea that resilience means powering through.
And the neuroscience pushes back on that hard. Matthew Walker's research on sleep, his book Why We Sleep synthesizes a huge body of evidence, shows that sleep is when the brain processes emotional memories. Without adequate sleep, the emotional brain becomes significantly more reactive.
So if you're chronically under-rested and then something hard happens, your ability to use any of these resilience strategies is already compromised.
The foundation has to be there. You can't cognitively reappraise your way through a crisis if your prefrontal cortex is running on empty.
Which is such a practical, unsexy, important point. Before the fancy frameworks, sleep.
Sleep and, relatedly, physiological self-regulation. This is where practices like slow, controlled breathing have real evidence behind them. The work coming out of Stanford's lab around cyclic sighing, Huberman Lab has made this accessible, shows measurable effects on the autonomic nervous system within minutes.
This one I've actually tested. On a genuinely terrible Thursday not long ago, I sat in my car before walking into a school pickup and just did a few minutes of slow exhales. And it helped, like noticeably.
That's the physiological sigh. An extended exhale activates the parasympathetic system. It works, it's not placebo.
Right, let's bring this together practically, because I want people to leave with something actionable. What's the entry point for someone who's currently in the thick of it and not thinking about long-term resilience training?
I'd say the honest answer is one thing, pick one. Either reach out to one trusted person, or do 5 minutes of slow breathing, or name, literally write down, one thing that feels meaningful to you right now. Don't try to overhaul your resilience architecture when you're in crisis.
And that's actually what the evidence supports, right? Small, consistent actions compound over time.
Exactly. This is where I'd point people to Kelly McGonigal's work at Stanford on the stress mindset. Her research shows that believing stress can be beneficial changes how your body responds to it. The intervention is surprisingly minimal, but it requires some degree of prior framing, which is why conversations like this one matter.
Which is the whole point of why we're here, honestly. Okay, if I had to give every listener one thing to walk away with today, it's this. Resilience is not a personality type. It is a set of practices. And the most accessible entry point is your relationships. Even one real trusted connection changes your biology when things get hard.
I'd add a small corrective to the cultural narrative we started with. Resilience isn't about not falling apart. It's about having enough in the system, sleep, meaning, connection, that falling apart doesn't become the permanent state.
Optimistically realistic. That's us. Y'all, thank you so much for spending this time with us. If today's conversation landed for you, please do hit like and subscribe. And honestly, share it with someone in your life who's going through a hard stretch. This might be exactly what they need to hear.
Until next time, build the foundations before the storm, or at minimum, find a good biscuit and one good friend.
Ha! That's actually not bad advice. Take care of yourselves, everyone. This show is part of the VoxCrea.AI system. If you want a show like this for your organization, without building it yourself,
go to VoxCrea.AI and request a sample episode.